Drink it in, man.
Deep left side carry on, picks on the block, at the 5, at the 2, at the 1 to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Drink it in, man.
Get up, Stafford throws, it is end zone. Caught! Oh, baby, what a catch! Kenny Galladay, you're a freak! What a catch! Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Cornbread! I love the Lions! Say it with me! I love the Lions!
Drink it in, man.
Hey everybody, this is Griff. I'll be covering the Packers game today. I wanted to cover the last one of the season. I remember when we first went through our preview before the season started, Derek and I both thought this would be a win and it would propel the Lions into the playoffs. And then when we covered the game before the season, we both thought this would be a loss, that the Packers would come out and just kind of do what the Packers always seem to do when the Lions are up in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers would throw the ball around. Matt Stafford would struggle, especially it being an away game late in Green Bay in December. This is one of those games that really, I think, could propel the Lions into some momentum going into the offseason. And be more than happy to go over it here with you guys here in a second. But first, let's get a word from our sponsor. Okay, once again, covering the game again. Started out Green Bay. Lions got the ball first and promptly went a 3-and-out. One of the pass plays, Matt Stafford did have a ball knocked down. It seemed to happen to him a lot. But then Lions punted away. It was a decent punt. And Lions defense kind of showed up a little more than I thought they would. Green Bay had a real quick offensive possession as well, and that was one. It was pretty much noted that Jared Davis had a sack. Once again, this is one of the things me and Derek always talk about. That he seems to read the opportunity to get a sack pretty well. He came out of the screen from nowhere and was able to make a great play in there, and Rodgers take him down. Packers punted the ball right back to him, and once again, Matt Stafford, had another ball knocked down on the next possession. That's 2 tip passes early in the game. One of those things that me and Derek talk about. Once again, he needs to get his arm angle a little better, and I don't know if he just had his eyes locked onto the receiver or not on that one, but that one seemed to be knocked down pretty quick as well. He seemed to try to integrate Andy Jones into the game early as well. Andy Jones, one of the guys that me and Derek wondered if he'd even make the team. He had some time on the practice squad with the Lions, and for some reason, I know the Lions were down a few wide receivers, but still, he tried to get to the ball to Andy Jones an awful lot during this game. We can go over that a little more later as well, but the Lions didn't have the ball that long, and Lions had a nice punt where they actually got the ball down within the 10-yard line. A false start penalty by Green Bay backed it up half the distance to the goal line, and they were like at their own 3. Lions defense showed up once again. The run defense was really, really good after they picked up snacks, and it just continued this game. One thing I did question, I'm not quite for sure what Aaron Rodgers was looking at on this play, that Rodgers had a 3rd and 4, and the running back had snuck out of the backfield and was out into the flat, and nobody was around him, and it looked like he looked right at the guy, and he kind of waved him off, and instead scrambled out to the right and then threw the ball downfield, and it was ball down the sideline that went out of bounds. It's one of those plays I just kind of questioned what he was doing. I don't know if he felt like he was thrown back across his body at the running back, or if he saw somebody kind of downfield that maybe been able to jump the route, but from the way it looked like, the way the play looked, nobody was there, and the running back was wide open. So just from the start, it looked like Aaron Rodgers didn't really want to be in this game at all. He was more worried about getting his locker packed up and out of there for the offseason because he knew the Packers weren't going anywhere. Joe Philbin was being the interim coach. Packers let Mike McCarthy go a week before. So this was just a game that Aaron Rodgers, I feel, didn't want to play. It's one of the tough things about late games in the NFL. You can tell the guys that know that the season's over, they don't care as much, and they just want to be not injured, in the last game of the season. That's pretty meaningless, and you can kind of tell that Aaron Rodgers was in that phase going into this game. Once again, the Lions get the ball back, and my guy, Levine Toilolo, has another catch. I know Derek likes it when I say this, so I think we might have found something with him. But anytime the Lions can work the tight ends into the offense, I'm happy with it, even if it's Levine Toilolo. On third and long, Lions had a third and long on this drive, and they found T.J. Jones. I know I'm bringing this up simply because I know Derek dislikes T.J. Jones an awful lot. He bags on him an awful lot, and but T.J. Jones had a nice catch and a nice little run afterwards, and put the Lions into the red zone, where they continued to continue the drive. They got down really close, and then Rick Wagner, I know once again Derek continues to tout him and saying he's doing a fine job. I once again believe that the money that the Lions are paying him, he is not making that money that well. And he had a penalty, and he had a holding penalty, and actually backed the ball up to the 11-yard line. That was the second. That now became second and goal from the 11. Nothing happened on second down. Third and goal. Matt Stafford finds T.J. Jones in the end zone. T.J. Jones, once again, Derek's favorite player on the team. He makes the catch, and nobody's standing around him. So the Lions go up 7-0 with about 2:58 left in the first quarter. This is one of those games. Once again, the Lions defense came out a lot better than what I thought they would. And the Packers, once again, they kind of looked like they didn't want to be there. Also, in the first quarter, the biggest thing on one of the Packers drives, the Lions did hit Aaron Rodgers on one of his passing attempts, promptly knocking him out of the game. You could see him. They showed the highlight afterwards of him walking towards the locker room, for concussion protocol. Once again, I never wish injuries on anybody. I wish nobody, especially a concussion. But still, watching Aaron Rodgers leave the game, I was pretty happy about that, simply because I don't like Aaron Rodgers. I think he's a crybaby. Always thought he was a crybaby. I think he does an awful lot of whining. He gets his way a lot because he plays for the Packers. And once again, everybody knows my feelings. Packers are our favorite team. So anytime that the Lions can, let's say, like I said, not permanently end his career, but knock him out of the game, I was pretty happy to see that. Like I said before, I don't believe Aaron Rodgers really felt like being on the field that day anyway, so I think almost he was kind of looking for a reason to get out of the game. So Deshaun Kaiser came in, and he was the quarterback from then on. Lions made it uncomfortable for him in the rest of the first quarter, and they ended up punting at the start of the second quarter. One of the guys I know Derek talked about in the preseason, and even actually after Golden Tate was traded, was Brian Powell. One of those quick, shifty guys. I know Golden Tate really touted him, said, oh, he'll be good. But Golden Tate seemed to say that about a lot of guys, wide receivers that were on the team that never really panned out into anything. But Powell, around a little under 13 minutes, he had this nice catch in speed, where and he had this nice catch, and he turned the ball upfield and really showed his speed. Powell could be one of those guys the Lions could use, and next year, if the coaches are comfortable with him, maybe give him a chance, see if he can use his speed and quickness and space. It seems to be one thing the Lions have trouble with, getting guys that can do that. And on this play, I just know it was a really nice catch and run, and it put the Lions into the red zone of Green Bay there. A couple plays later, it seems like the drive stopped. They're going to bring, the Lions once again settle for a field goal. It's one of those things that really annoys me, that it seems like when they get into scoring position, they seem to take their foot off the throttle, and they're like, okay, we're in the red zone, or we're within field goal range, and so we'll settle, call the plays that are safe. That way we don't, turn the ball over and get the 3 points. So right around about 10:45, Prater's lined up for his field goal. They do the fake field goal, snap right to Prater. Levine Toilolo had snuck out into the wide open flat and was just standing there. Prater tosses him the ball. The Lions go up 14-0 on this great trick play, with about 10:36 left in the second quarter. It's one of those plays that we're always kind of scratching our head, saying, well, how come they don't do this earlier in the year? They always do it in spots where it doesn't really matter anymore. I mean, yeah, it's a nice play, it's trickeration, and obviously caught the Packers off guard, caught the Lions fans off guard for sure. But it's one of those plays that it's like, how come you don't use it when the games are still meaningful? That's kind of how I felt about this play. It's like, great, yeah, they scored an awesome touchdown, they tricked them, but we all knew the Lions weren't going to the playoffs at this point, and we knew the Packers weren't going anywhere at this point. So, I mean, yeah, it helped, go up 14-0 against the Packers, but one of those things, just like, I wish Pat would have brought this out earlier in the year in other games where they really could have used it, kind of going for that jugular. It seemed like I said, it seemed like a lot during the year, as with other previous years. Lions just always kind of settled for field goals and field goal attempts as opposed to really driving it, trying to score touchdowns, and really breaking the backs of the opponent. Then, roughly next drive for the Packers, they're putting a nice little drive together, but then DeShone Kizer on a third down, he promptly throws the ball to Jared Davis, which, I don't know, it didn't even look like that hot a pass. Jared Davis I don't know if he just wasn't expecting it. Well, obviously he wasn't, but he was the only guy in the area, and Kizer threw it right to him. And then that could have gave the Lions excellent field position, but they ended up having the Packers punt and getting the ball back that way. So once again, it's in the second quarter, Lions get the ball back. They start to put a nice drive together, and then they're starting to run the ball a lot more. This is one of those things that me and Derek talked about on how come the Lions just can't impose their will. The Lions' offensive line, they never seem to really be road graders. Watching the game, I know in the first quarter of this game, the Lions were having trouble running the ball. They had LeGarrette Blount in there. Once again, I think LeGarrette Blount, you heard my take on him before. It seemed like he had lost a step or two. This might have been a game he wasn't really too worried about, concerned about. Once again, don't get too injured in a game that doesn't mean anything. The guy's been around for a while. He just knows how the game is played. Just don't get injured. Kind of maybe save some of this for guys that are playing for a spot next year. That's kind of what I think Zach Zenner did. He was really taking his opportunity. He ran the ball really, really hard this game. And he was helping them in this drive right before the end of the second quarter. They were putting a nice drive together, to go down for a score. And then it was actually second goal from the 13-yard line. There was another penalty that backed him up, and Zenner had just scored on relatively the play before, but there was a holding penalty on the outside. One of the wide receivers had a holding call and it actually backed him up. So the play before, Zenner had scooted around the end, got to the edge, scored, holding penalty, backed him up to the 13. At this point, I think they're going to try to pass it in. That seems to be what the Lions do on second down. They'll try a pass, and if that doesn't work, they'll just do they'll do a third down run, keep the ball in play, and then settle for the points. That's kind of what I saw coming here. But from the 13-yard line, with a little over a minute left, Zenner makes this great run. There's a big hole right up the middle. Graham Glasgow and Graham Glasgow makes this nice block, opening this big hole right up the middle, and Zenner takes it right up the seam, untouched, and for a 13-yard touchdown. Lions go up 21-0 at that point. And if you couldn't tell from before, it just seemed at that play, at that score, being down 21-0, Green Bay's will to play in this game was kind of broken at that point. Nothing was happening offensively with Kizer at the helm. The defense was just giving up big plays. Like we mentioned before, Powell had this nice catch and run earlier in the quarter. Zenner had just scooted around the edge of the play before, but this play, even from the 13-yard line, just a big hole opens up the middle, and Zenner goes in for a touchdown. Now, kudos, for the offensive line creating such a large hole. But like I said, I think going down 21-0 right before the halftime, that pretty much broke the will of the Packers to play this game, and they just simply did not want to be out there anymore. So up 21-0. The Lions' offense has seemed to have come alive. They're passing the ball pretty well. Stafford, looked sharp at that point. He was actually fitting the ball in a couple tight windows here and there. Wide receivers were getting open. The running game had really started to come alive with Zach Zenner at the helm, and the offensive line was blocking pretty well. There was a couple times where the Packers did get some pressure on Stafford, but he was able to either step out of the pocket, get up, throw the ball away. He wasn't having to do anything spectacular to make plays happen. So after half, the Lions kick off. And once again, like I said, the Lions defense showed up early in the second half. Kaiser was sacked, and they were forced to punt on after a third down, third down sack. Once again, the Lions were getting really good pressure this game on Kaiser. It's always nice to do that to a young quarterback, make him try to see the field, change up stuff on the defense, give him different looks. Even though the Lions were up 21-0, they were still being aggressive on defense. We've all seen the Lions. It seemed like they stubbed their toe before, let teams get back into it, and then something happened. But that didn't happen here. The Lions defense kept the pressure on there as much as possible and make the Kaiser uncomfortable in the pocket. After that, it was pretty much a slow offense, for the Lions. They got real conservative. Once again, didn't want to lose the game. They just tried to milk the clock as much as in the third quarter. 21 points is a lot to come back from. And but the one thing they did have really nice late in the third quarter, with about 4.5 minutes left, they had this really nice screen pass to Zach Zenner. And then it was one of those things where Zenner was able to sneak out, and he had blocking in front. I mean, that's the biggest thing. We've seen Lions try to run screen plays before, and it seems like somebody misses a block, or it's ill-timed, or it's too high of a pass, or thrown at the running back's feet where it's dropped, and then everything kind of breaks down from that. But this was well set up, well timed. Zenner was able to gain like 12, 15 yards on the screen pass, and it pretty much it started a drive that got him downfield, and then right before the end of the quarter, with about 3 minutes left, Prater came in and kicked a field goal, making the score 24-0. So that was the only scoring there in the third quarter. But the Lions defense really showed up in that quarter, not letting the Packers back into the game at all, which is huge. And at this point, I believe the Packers are just watching the clock, thinking about, hey, how quick can I get my locker cleaned out? Do I have to come back Monday for exit interview? Things like that. So the nice thing is that the Lions defense was really starting to focus on getting the shutout on this. It's always nice to have a shutout, even in a meaningless game like this. And then it just gives your team confidence going into next year. Once again, it leads to the momentum that we speak of. It kind of shows the guys that want to be there, want to play hard, continue to play hard, be on the team next year. Diggs had a good game. Slay had a good game. I mean, those were the Lions Pro Bowlers, but they really showed up in this game as well. I think Tracy Walker, I saw him out there making plays as well. Defensive line-wise, Snacks was out there still playing hard. He's been in the game a long time, but still he was out there really playing hard for the team. Ashawn played well as well. Really, really happy with the defense. That they showed up and really continue to really grow under Matt Pat from a season that was really disappointment, thinking where they could have been. They really, really stepped up in this game to preserve a shutout going into the fourth quarter against the Packers. Then early on the fourth quarter, one of the plays that we always talk about, Jared Davis, is nice that he hustles, but he has a late hit out of bounds on Kaiser. And this one's way out of bounds. This one's not even on the white on the sideline, where that's like that coach's box where the coaches can stand. I mean, this is where the players are supposed to be standing, and Jared Davis hits him. So it's one of those plays, it's just like in a game that, was closer, maybe more meaningful, plays like that can really hurt you. It's one of those things where you just really gotta be smart about that, especially on quarterbacks. I'm sure Jared Davis knows this, but this wasn't even close. It wasn't like he was just running out of bounds, he got a hit. This was way out of bounds and he got hit. And that's really the downside that I've really seen in the fourth quarter on the Lions defense. Pretty much the same drive right there. The Packers had a 3rd and 5, and at this point they're just pretty much going for it, just trying to get back in the game. And then Kaiser sacked. I'm thinking at this point, okay, they're just going to punt it away, do what they need to do. But no, instead it's a 4th and 9, and Kaiser shows why he's in the NFL. Besides his arm, he can scramble a little bit too. And there was a big open running lane up the middle because everybody had ran off, and Lions were man-to-man at this point. So Kaiser scrambles and just is able to run for probably about 15 yards for a first down, continuing the drive. Then they keep going with it, and then there's same drive. The Packers are moving down. They're inside the red zone, and it's a 4th and 3. Knowing that they need points, they pick on Darius Slay. Darius Slay makes a nice play and breaks up the pass. Once again, he does his patented finger wave, which I always like. Slay's my boy. I've always liked him. I remember at training camp as a rookie, I was able to shake his hand, and I just told him, "Hey, you're going to be good." And all he said was thanks. And it's one of those guys. Yes, Derek makes fun of me because I pat myself on the back when I get him right, and I got this one right. So I'll tout that one, as much as possible. Lions get the ball back and late in the fourth, midway through the fourth, and then they start a drive. Once again, they don't take the foot off the accelerator, which I'm always very happy about. They could have just sat on it, but no. The offensive line was pretty much doing what they wanted at this point. Stafford was getting no pressure on him. The Packers defense, it seemed like even the young guys that, I don't know, you always hear the stories that they're just putting film out there for other teams to see, show the coaches who want to be here next year. But it's one of those things where Packers know they're obviously going to have a whole new coaching staff, so you could just tell they just want the game over with. They didn't want to be there anymore. And it's one of those things where the Lions just took advantage of it. They ran the ball very well. Late in the drive, Stafford was able to find T.J. Jones again with a little under 7 minutes left in the game. T.J. Jones' second touchdown of the game. As for you, Derek, that's your boy. He should come back next year, should be a starter. In the slot, the guy can do a lot of things. He's good. He could be the starting punt returner. That's for you, Derek. I know you're going to like to hear that. So, up 31-0. Lions all at this point right now, they're just thinking it's just preserve the shutout. And, obviously about 6.5 minutes left in the game. And nothing's really happened at this point. Packers can't get anything going. Lions offense is just sitting on the ball right now, doing what they need to do not to turn the ball over. Late in the game, Packers have the ball. It's 3rd and 4. And pressure on Kaiser. He just rolls out. And I don't know what this pass was. He just threw the ball up in the air. This was one of those things, I don't know, it's just, you could probably throw it out of bounds. He was obviously, some people saying he was just trying to make a play, but I don't even know about that. That thing, it was just like a hot potato to him. He just threw the ball up in the air. Diggs makes a nice play. He times the ball at the high point in front of the wide receiver, and I think it was it the Valdez Schilling, that guy that was being found a bunch for Green Bay that game. But he picks it off. That pretty much ends the game right there. Lions have a few plays. They kneel on it. Game over. The Packers did have timeouts, but they knew they weren't gonna waste them, which was a good thing. That was just one of those things like just let the clock run out, and we'll go on from there. But this is one of those things where the Lions really showed me a lot more. The coaching staff was able to get the team motivated a lot more than what I thought they would be. Once again, like I said before, it was just a disappointing season based on where a lot of Lions fans, a lot of Lions players thought they could be. The offense once had to find its footing a little more. Once they traded Tate away. I know Derek was happy about that. It was still annoyed me at the time because the Lions were still mathematically not eliminated. And I know Derek was pretty happy with the trade, but they had to do some reworking in the offense. They had some injuries. Kerryon Johnson went out. Marvin Jones went out. Kenny Golladay effectively became their only offensive weapon that they had, and he was still able to get open. I mean, he wasn't used a whole lot in this game, but he was still able to get open and make a lot of contributions in a lot of games. But as for this game, I mean, some of the young blood out there that really was showing how they really wanted to be on the team, coming back next year with this coaching staff. I mentioned Powell. Powell, obviously young, had a young career day, having 6 catches for 103 yards. This guy just seemed to be always open. And that's just one of those things, like we said. He could be, if the Lions don't want to draft a wide receiver or try to sign a slot guy, I know me and Derek talked about that, we could use this guy in the slot. He's quick, he's shifty, he has speed. 6 catches, 103 yards. Those are really, really good stats. Zach Zenner, 21 carries, 93 yards on the 13-yard touchdown. 93 yards, 21 carries. I was a little miffed with Detroit, to be honest with you. When he in late in the fourth quarter, he had 93 yards. They just showed the stat and they pulled him to put LeGarrette Blount in. And I thought that was just strictly right there, like, okay, it's near the end of the game, we got to give Blount his carries. We signed this guy to a 1-year contract. He's the veteran. He's been around for a while. Let's show him some respect and put him in late in the game. But that's one of those things. Like, Zach Zenner's running hard. I don't know if anybody's told him he's close to 100 yards or not, but they pulled him to put LeGarrette Blount in. And I know when I first mentioned that before, Derek was just kind of like miffed at me about it, and I'm just like, still though, I mean, yeah, give the guy his due. He's the one, making the hay all day, and you're going to put LeGarrette Blount in just like, just as a feel-good story because the guy was a, returning veteran that you guys signed for 1 year, and so you had to get him on the field to end the game as the last game of the season. Blunt really didn't do anything all year that was spectacular in my eyes. That thought, okay, let's do this for this guy. You're going to let him walk next year. I don't think they're going to bring him back. So who cares? I mean, Matt Pat, I realize you coached him, or he was on the team when you coached in New England, but still, I thought Zach Zenner should have been able to run that game out and at least try to get the century mark as a running back. Andy Jones, he had showed up a few games late in the year. This game itself, he had six catches for 50 yards. Pretty decent for a young guy. He did have a couple drops. He would have probably close to 65, 70 yards if he wouldn't have had those drops. But still, those are pretty decent numbers for Andy Jones. And then because I have the space to myself, I'm going to bring up Levine Toilolo. His 4 catches, 43 yards and a touchdown. Yeah, I looked at his overall stats over the year, and 43 yards. He only finished barely over 200 yards receiving. So that's one of those things. Like of course the Lions can do better at tight end. I mean, most of you guys know I'm being facetious when how much I tout Levine Toilolo. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be the game breaker that the Lions need, but they do need to improve at the tight end. But Toilolo could be a nice little piece. I just wouldn't depend on him for the year. Like I said, this game could really do some springboarding for the Lions into next year and what they're looking at. I know there seems to be like a little bit of a groundswell about moving on from Stafford, and me and Derek talk about it, how it wouldn't be wise for the salary cap at this point, either to cut him or trade him. That would just be a huge hit. I mean, you could do it, but then you're pretty much hamstringing yourself for the next few years, where you're pretty much being uncompetitive because you wouldn't be able to sign a decent quarterback. And I personally feel this year the quarterbacks in the draft, they're not that great. So none of them, I don't think any of these quarterbacks in this year's draft are going to turn into your Peyton Mannings or Joe Montanas, your Brett Favre's, anything like that. I just think they're a bunch of average guys. I know a lot of people are like, hey, try to get Kyler Murray. We'll talk about him later when we're talking about draft stuff, and I can let you know how I feel about him. But right now, Stafford's our guy. We got to support him. I think he can have a bounce back year next year. This year, he had he was 367 for 555, threw close to 3,800 yards and 21 touchdowns and 11 picks. So he's pretty much 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Just there was points where he just looked uncomfortable during the year. I don't know if, like we said, if he was a little shell-shocked or he just didn't want to get hit anymore, but there was just points he just seemed to be off. And I don't know if that was due to Golden Tate being traded, Marvin Jones, being hurt later in the year. He just didn't seem like himself. He wasn't that gunslinger that he had been in the past. Did a lot of check down Charlies as well. As for Kenny Golladay, he finished the year with 70 catches for 1,063 yards and 5 TDs. Now, the 5 TDs, I saw that number. I was like, wow, it seemed like he had a few more than that. But 1,000 yards out of Kenny, I myself believe, I don't know if he's upper tier wide receiver, like top line. I know Derek's a huge fan of, Beckham. And Odell Beckham, me myself, I think he's overrated, but I don't know if he's in that top tier. Antonio Brown, Julio Jones, AJ Green. I don't know if he's in that tier yet, but he might be on the step right below it, making his way up to top tier. Kenny Golladay, I give Derek props. He's been on him since he first saw him. Rewatching the games, thinking the guy could really be something, be special for this team. I'm always a little more cautious, especially with wide receivers. I like to give him a little bit of time before this. But Kenny Golladay really, really impressed me this year with what he did, especially with some more of the coverage being flipped over to him after the trade of Tate and the injury to Marvin Jones. So I think the Lions do have some pieces going into next year. I mean, starting out with a Kenny Golladay, having Kerryon Johnson in the backfield is big as well. They're just going to have to support Stafford, and I think they just need to get some pieces, a few more pieces on defense right there. having snacks to anchor the defensive line. Jared Davis, either there's a groundswell to like draft another linebacker and move him to the outside or something, but the guy's pass coverage has to get better. Him reading angles for tackles has to get better. I believe he does do pretty good at blitzing packages and reading the quarterback and knowing when to leave his position to put pressure on the quarterback when the quarterback starts to roll out. So he just needs to improve a little more. Kennard had a good year, better year than what I thought he would. For the Lions than I thought he would. Pleasant surprise signing there. Well worth the money that the Lions gave him. On the back half, Slay on one side. Once again, high risk, high reward guy, but he seems to be a lot more reward than risk right now. Lions need another cornerback, but I know we're just preaching to the choir right here. Everybody knows that. But Diggs showing something, showing something back there. Being a Pro Bowler this year, busted his hand one game. Still was out there playing with a broken hand. Big props to Diggs. Like that guy. Liked it when they drafted him, but he didn't just pigeonhole him as a nickel corner. Moved around, put him back at safety. This guy's got some talent right there. So pretty happy with that as well. So just to recover the game here, the Lions went into Green Bay, pretty much imposed their will. Probably about midway through the first quarter, they really came alive. Offensive line started to block better. The running game started to really pick up. Stafford was finding some open wide receivers. They had the fake field goal for a touchdown to Toilolo. And then late in the quarter with Zenner's 13-yard touchdown run pretty much broke the will of the Packers. They didn't feel like coming out for the second half. Seems like there was a lot of guys on this team. I remember one point in the game, the Lions, I remember the play. Yeah, the Lions did false start, but Clay Matthews came across the line of scrimmage, was pointing at the wide receiver, and they called encroachment on Clay Matthews, and he was pretty mad about it. Hey, I'm glad something gets called on Clay Matthews. I think this guy, it was like, he's a clean player. No, I think Clay Matthews gets away with a little more because he plays with Green Bay. Once again, you guys have heard my tirade, Green Bay's favorite team, so they let him do a little more. So having Clay Matthews get a penalty called on him in his home stadium, I was pretty happy with that as well. It made me smile a little bit. But at that point, the Lions just pretty much kept the pressure on. Kaiser was uncomfortable as coming in for Aaron Rodgers. He didn't look comfortable. He's missing guys wide, short. He wasn't that good. He did have a couple scrambling plays where he was able to run for a first down. But other than that, the Lions kept him in the pocket, kept pressure on him. He did have a pick, thrown to Diggs late in the game. T.J. Jones, 2 touchdowns. That's a point out for you, Derek, right there. Make sure you hit the bell on that because I know how much you like T.J. Jones. So Lions win this one going away, going 31-0. Ending a season a little disappointing that they weren't going to the playoffs, but still, big W up in Green Bay. Beat them 4 times in a row, and that hasn't happened since the early 80s. So I don't know how many of you guys out there on the listen Detroit Koolaid remember that. I do. So anytime the Lions can beat division rivals, I'm happy with it no matter what. So once again, I appreciate everybody for listening. Once again, drink it in. Have the cornbread. Once again, please subscribe, listen to us. We're on a number of platforms. I know Derek now has us looked up to YouTube, so you can listen to us there as well. So drink it in, guys, and me and Derek will be coming to you next week with a couple more shows. Everybody, out.
Pack the bags, start the plane. This game is over. It is over. What a comeback by the Lions.
Drink it in, man.